Hey guys, so welcome back to my channel. Today, what I have for you is, I guess, a series video as to how it is that I go about making my wigs. This is a video that one of my close friends, Sophia, her sister had requested that I make. Therefore, it'll be easier for you all to learn how to make wigs step by step using my process, because I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube showing you how you could go about making a wig step by step. So this is the method that I use. Feel free to tweak it to your liking and to how easily accessible it is for you to attain some of these products in this series. So yeah, with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my videos, as well as follow me on social media to keep up with whatever it is that I may be doing and or working on. So yeah, with that being said, let's just get into this video. Now what I'm gonna do is start off by showing you all what I'm going to be using, the frontals that I'm gonna be using in this process. I'm gonna be using two different kinds, a curly one and a straight one for my wigs. Now, with that being said, I'm not going to show you how I go about making both of these wigs, just one of them. Now, the products I'm going to use are a bottle of water, as well as, well, you could also, instead of using a spray bottle full of water, you could just go ahead and wash the frontal, which eventually I'm going to get to, but this, I'm only using this for video purposes. And then I'm going to be using some bleaching powder. Typically I use the Blonde Me bleaching powder, which it has up to 9 levels of lift, but instead I'm just going to use some leftover Clairol's Kaleido Colors Blue Professional Tonal Powder Bleach. It's just some leftover product that I have from someone else's hair that I've done, as well as this cream peroxide 40 volume developer that I got from the beauty supply store. It's something that I was able to get my hands on easily. Therefore, I'm pretty sure you all will be able to find these. And then I'm going to use a bleaching bowl like this one. You could use a regular kitchen bowl. You don't have to go out and buy that. And then something else that is optional is this Ion Absolute Perfection Booster Step number 1. Like I said, this is optional. You don't need it. And then I'm going to use one of my combs, this brow spoolie that I use for hair all of the time, as well as this popsicle stick. So lastly, what I'm going to use is like this little whisk to mix all of my products together for this process. Now for this bleaching process, like I said, I'm just going to use some of this leftover Kaleido Color powder, and I'm just going to pour all of that in there. I typically don't really use measurements. I kind of eyeball it to my discretion. And because I'm going to bleach 2 frontals, I'm going to add a little bit of my Blonde Me powder to it as well. And then I'm just going to go in and mix these powders together. And now I'm just going to go in with this 40 volume developer a little at a time, so that I can make sure I get a cake batter consistency. Now see, this, it doesn't move, okay? This does not move, and that's perfectly fine, but I want to dilute it a little bit because I don't like my cake batter thick, if you feel me. I like that fluffy cake or pancake type of, what is it called, pastry or whatnot. So yeah, I'm just going to thin that out a little more. Now what I'm going to do is go in with my Ion Absolute Perfection Booster. And this acts as Olaplex step number one. It works exactly the same. So if you're on a budget, just feel free to use this. I do have the Olaplex, but I don't want to waste my Olaplex on my frontal. It's just a personal preference. But just so you know, using this will thin out your frontals a lot, okay? It will thin them out. Okay, so using that Absolute Perfection Booster will thin out your frontals. I mean, not the frontal, but this mixture a little bit. See, it will make it a little runny. So keep that in mind. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and spray my frontal down, or you could go ahead and wash it at this point. But yeah, I think I'm going to just spray it down a little bit. That way, it's easier for the bleaching mix to go ahead and process this frontal a lot easier, because the pores will be open on the hair shaft of the hairs that are on the frontal. And I'm also going to do the same for this. All right, so now that both of these have been saturated with water, what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to suggest that if you are not a professional, that you go ahead and use gloves for the next steps in this process. It's just something that I personally recommend that everyone use. And because I've done this process before, I know that this curly hair is going to take just a tad bit longer to process. You could use foil for the duration of this. I'm not going to use foil because I'm not looking to rush the coloring process on my frontal. So I'm just going to take this popsicle stick and I'm going to start at the back portion of my frontal. And that's because the front portion of it has already been pre-lightened. So I want to start at the back portion of my frontal and just start coloring that way. And I'm just going to tap lightly, like so. Like, I'm not even going to press it in. I'm just going to smooth it over a little bit. Now, because this frontal is already my skin tone, I don't need to, what is that called? I don't need to tone or add color to the frontal. Like, I don't need to make it darker. Now, because the frontal is already my skin tone, I don't need to tint my lace. If your frontal is too light for your skin tone, I would suggest tinting the lace before you do this process. Otherwise, you will end up doing more, like, basically you will end up tinting the knots unintentionally. So I would tint the lace first and then go in and bleach your frontal. Now remember, you do not want to press this bleach into your frontal. You don't want to press it in. You just want to smooth it over, especially because it's wet, and it makes that bleaching process a lot easier. So with it being wet, it'll penetrate the frontal more than if it would had you not wet your frontal up. Now, it's also important for you to make sure that your frontal, the hairs or baby hairs, are not slicked down close to the lace. So when I was going in and spraying the hair down with water, what I did was I made sure to comb back the hairs away from adhering themselves to the lace. That way they didn't get bleached in this process. And this is what it looks like on the other side. You see how it hasn't penetrated through the lace at all. And that's how you want it to be. And so I'm just going to let it sit like this. And oops, hold on. You want to make sure all these knots are covered. But yes, I'm just going to let it sit like this and process for about 20 minutes. Now on to the next one. All right, so this is what it's looking like right now. I'm about to go in and wash the product out. And what I'm going to use first is my Olaplex number 2. This is optional, as well as this Frontal No Yellow shampoo, just to tone the knots a little bit, to remove any brassy or yellow tones from off this frontal and the knots. And this is what the other frontal is looking like. It is also ready. So I'm going to go ahead and wash both of them using the same process. All right, so this is the end result of the process of bleaching this frontal. It's not really even necessary for me to go in plucking it, seeing that this frontal is already pre-plucked, but I will go in to show you all how to go about plucking your wigs to make them look like the hair is growing out of your scalp naturally. As you see, there are no orangey or brassy tones in this frontal. Yeah, it's absolutely like nowhere to be found. And this is going to blend in with my skin perfectly. Try not to overdo it with the Frontal because it will unintentionally tint your lace and your knots a different color. So I try not to let it sit on my frontals for too long. But yeah, other than that, what I'm going to do now is go about plucking this hair and then prepping the bundles for this wig installation.